on the financial agreement.
I mean, I would ask any comments that are general
Yeah,
about Somerset to be in the
right.
public comment period, which is coming up very quickly.
Right.
Okay, so you want me to wait then on that?
If you don't mind,
Yeah.
that would be
Okay.
appropriate. Thank you. This is strictly the financial agreement, the pilot.
Right. Yes. Well, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm
Come on.
not sure.
Okay.
Gina Crisione, 35 Rambling Brook Drive. This is an agenda item 2019-319. Is that related?
No, that's not the subject of the public hearing.
Okay, so I can...
Regular public comment.
Public comment. Sorry. Anyone else in public? Seeing none?
I'll make a motion that we accept this and adopt this ordinance.
Second.
Okay. Call the vote.
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Catali?
Yes.
Dr. Pascucci?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholas?
Yes. All right. All right, departments. Chief, anything?
All good.
All good? Good? Yeah, that sounds
Optimistic. It's an understatement.
All right, Bill?
Nothing additional tonight.
Mr. Collins?
I think I've done my talking for the evening. Thank you.
Fran, can you give us a story about how your day went today?
Nothing specific, Mayor, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. All right, so boards, committees, anyone, I'll start with Mr. Kelly.
No report, Mr. Deputy.
Dr. Pascucci.
I got a lot.
Okay.
Fire. I was going to ask the mayor, but since he's not here, I'll ask the deputy mayor, please get with the mayor. I would like on the next agenda, after this happy season passes, that we discuss the fire issue amongst all 5 of us. Right now, where we stand is, we have architectural drawings to redo the first aid firehouse on Crawford's Corner Road. We have a drawing to put a firehouse with 4 bays somewhere in Homedale. The property we're thinking of is the F&F property. We own that. There's a part of it on the side that we can build. But there's another part where we're trying to do a switch, if we can, to put it not right on the side by someone's house, but more on the corner. So that's another site we're looking at. We're trying to get the fire company to do a buy-in, but I think it's going to come down to this township committee making a decision where to put it. Yes, the fire company wanted, they preferred to do it on the quote Pesh property, but that's off the table, so that can't be done. So where we stand now is, we have drawings for Crawford's Corner Road, we have drawings for somewhere on F&F, and that's where we stand, and we have to push this forward. Next visit, next meeting, it has to be on the agenda, and we have to settle this. This is going on too long. Of course, I'd like to have everyone's buy-in, meaning the fire department and first aid and all that, but I think it might come down to us picking a site. But this is something we promised the public, centrally located firehouse.
Mark, what happened to the site across from where you were going to build a new EMS building? Nobody's giving me any feedback on that.
Well, the new EMS building was going to be built because it would be cheaper for us to build an EMS building than a firehouse, and we were going to recondition the first aid. However, it doesn't seem to meet certain people's needs. It also takes away our OEM, which is 2 to 3 bays that we need. So if we converted that into a firehouse, we still got to get some bays for Office of Emergency Management. They do have several vehicles that we use, including their command trailer. So right now, I don't have buy-in from the fire department. I would like to have that instead of us dictating. So we're in the process of working it, but we have these 2 sites now. And in my opinion, as the public safety chair, I'm gonna recommend that we should pick one of these next meeting. We'll send you all the copies, Chief. We can send them all the drawings, and we'll get you the costs. But those are the 2 sites where we stand now.
Okay. So, Brock, you want to put on the next meeting's agenda a vote to decide?
We want us to discuss the firehouse
Discuss it,
locations.
okay.
And come to an agreement as to where we're gonna put it. Time is well past. It's time we gotta make this decision, gentlemen, and move forward. I know the mayor wants to too, So let's get this moving forward. I would love it. It has to be on the next agenda. And I can't put it on the agenda, the mayor does, correct? So I will ask that you get with him, Mike, and put it on the agenda. Number two, this is going to be, I don't like this always falling on me. We had an investigation in this town, investigating some, quote, irregularities, to say the least. The one thing I want to say first is that one of the things that, and this is my opinion, this is not the township's, that I was looking into some concerns that people had about Mr. Critelli having work done on his property. However, during the investigation, I found no evidence to that. The people that I questioned did not concur, agree with any of the statements that some people have made. So I want to state that in public. Number two, and I really don't want to do this, but my job, I'm kind of a black and white guy, is to keep this township moving forward and to follow process and procedure. I'd rather hang with Eric Hines than any of these other gentlemen here up here. I just like them as a person. But when someone doesn't do their job, I have to speak up and say so. So I'm going to read a resolution that I would like the township to consider. Please bear with me because I don't see too good with these glasses at night. And again, I like Eric better than the other gentleman here. I'm being blunt. I just get along with him, but when someone does something incorrect, I got to speak out. That's my nature. This is a resolution. Whereas members of the Homedale Township Committee, we are subject to the Code of Ethics, which include the following sections: 2-77.2, ethical standards and the local government ethics law, NJSA 40A:9-22.1 et sequitur. And whereas in section 2-77.1 definitions, the term officer includes members of the Township Committee. Whereas the Township Committee has conducted an investigation that has resulted in the following findings, in my opinion. In February, the mayor sent an email to the former administrator to move forward on an artificial turf field project at the swim club as soon as possible. I have a copy of it. And that the former administrator directed our township engineer to make this a tippy-top priority. And whereas the mayor spoke with the Homedale Director of Infrastructure on this process, and whereas Mayor Hines has violated the Township of Homedale ethics standards by diverting public funds for a pet artificial turf project at the Homedale Swim Club. 2, directing our former administrator to execute engineering work without a vote of the governing body, to usurp the purpose of the February 2019 2.5 recreational bond intended for all HYA needs and improvements. He has been in contact with the former administrator before her sworn testimony here. And whereas in committing these acts, Mayor Hines has advanced his own interests in seeking publicly an acclaim for himself, he has jeopardized the interest and negotiation position of the Township of Homedale. And whereas residents of Homedale have written to and appeared before the Township Committee complaining of non-transparency in government spending and action. And whereas the Township Committee takes these matters very seriously and believes that the mayor's action constitutes behavior that is unacceptable for an elected official. And whereas the Township Committee cannot and does not condone and will not tolerate such act of taxpayer fund misappropriation. Now therefore, may it be resolved that the Township Committee of Homedale hereby censures Mayor Hines for the above mentioned acts and hereby admonishes him for inappropriate behavior. Be it further resolved that a written complaint, including a copy of this resolution, shall be sent to the Monmouth County Ethics Board, to the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs Division of Local Government Services, Local Finance Board, which administers the local ethics law in Monmouth County. We also would like to send a copy, I would like to send a copy to the state legislators of the 13th Legislative District representing Homedale. I would like a vote on this resolution.
So this entire past few months have been very frustrating to be on the township committee and to go through what we've had to go through. So commend Committee Member Scucci for taking this initiative, and I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
What do I need for? You need a roll call?
If you want to pause, the vote's been seconded, if there's any comment.
Roll.
Call for the vote.
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Catali?
Someone said it has been a waste the last 6 months, and there's no question about it. It's the most unproductive 6 months in my 7 years on this committee. I've expressed my frustration to my family. I've considered stepping down because it's just a political witch hunt, that all the wheels fell off the minute Mr. Nicholas wasn't accepted as a nominee for the Monmouth County Republican nomination to run for re-election. I find it interesting, Dr. Pascucci, that this censorship has been discussed or chatted about for some time now, and you wait until 2 weeks before the election to bring it up, but that's neither here nor there. I've watched, I'm a macro kind of guy, so for 7 years, I look at things as a big picture, and I look at our mayor, who has done some tremendous things for this town over the years. He's not perfect. I'm sure not perfect as mayor last year. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience weren't happy with some of the moves that I made, but I stuck to my convictions. And were some mistakes made this year by the mayor? Maybe. But to censor him for that when the meeting was never held, and all the nonsense that's gone on over the last 6 months, I just think it's ridiculous. And it's political. Obviously, it's political. And you're trying to harm him, someone that I believe has done a very good job overall in this town. So obviously, I'm voting no.
Dr. Pascucci?
Since everyone's making comment, whether it's appropriate or not, $2.1 million was placed on the bills payable over $3,500. We cannot run a town like this. No one is meeting to this day who put it on the agenda. Did a ghost do it? Did the boogeyman come down to do it? Come on, guys. Process and procedure must be followed, or it takes away all our rights. I was voted in to do what I think is best. By doing an end game, it takes away those rights. They call us the honorable. Let's act honorable. This is not political. It's right versus wrong. No way, Tom. Have a good one. I'm voting yes to censure him.
Mr. Nicholas?
So, this isn't about politics or partisanship. No, this isn't because he broke a promise to me. This is about accountability and transparency for our residents. They depend on us. I value the conduct that is that our elected officials have when in acting in their capacity up on this dais. It's important. This is about openness and transparency. This is not an attack on the man, Mayor Eric Hines. No one can deny he is a loving father, dedicated husband, and a committed volunteer coach for our youth sports. That's not the issue here. The issue is that we have bills that have to be paid that were never approved, never voted on, and the politics of it. Yes, there's politics, but that's up to the voters whether or not, if you want to get into the weeds. That I think it's disgusting that girls HYA softball was asked to pay for their improvements. That's something the voters will decide. That's a political issue. But this is not a political issue. This is something that was done without 3 members of the governing body knowing about it. And I think it's clear that through this investigation that there was an attempt to hide this. And this was a waste. Yes, this was a waste of government services and our time. And I vote yes for this censure.
No, you're a committee. Committee voted. No, you did.
You voted, Mike.
I mean, your board.
No, he gets his turn.
He gets his turn.
Boards and committees.
Yeah.
Got it.
So a couple of things. One is DPW finishing up all their brush pickup around town, and we'll be starting their leaf schedule, Chief, momentarily, right? And the leaf collection is, I know, starts to get underway right about now.
Yeah, I don't have a date.
Yeah, but that's en route. And following through on what we just discussed up here, where we initially pulled some of the T&M bills for the turf. I think we pulled them, but we never really did anything with them. So I don't think they can sit in perpetual holding pattern forever. Do we need to take motion, or should we take a vote on that, Mike, or what to do? Because we certainly had, I want to put some closure to what's been going on. It's been months of this. We had bills that the Township Committee never approved, as we heard in the testimony. So, you know, the bills that were submitted to the town, in the neighborhood of another $30,000-ish. We need to decide whether we're going to move forward with them and pay them.
I'd like to, since you're bringing that up, I'd like to ask if we consider not paying those bills at this time. I mean, I think that our township engineer should be given the opportunity to consider that. They were paid partially for the work that they did, and the work that they've completed that are maybe not being paid for might be something they could use in the future if any other recreation improvements are planned up there. And I think Mr. Mullins in the audience, maybe he cares to accept that, if that's something this committee would consider. Well, before I think, of course, ran on the spot.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's see. I'm going to make a motion that we don't pay those bills, and we ask T&M to withdraw them at this point.
So withdraw the balance. How about the bills that we paid? Because I think we paid the bills as they came in small amounts. We didn't know what at the time the total volume was. So I'm one to say, you know, we clearly didn't. We got sworn testimony from the administrator that said they were never authorized. We never authorized them. So I don't feel we're accountable for any of the money that is still pending and the money that was already paid. So I'd like to rescind the money that we paid.
Well, we're not in agreement on that, so why don't you chime in, Rocco?
I'm at a dilemma, because if you look at the two testimonies between T&M and the administrator, they were contradictory. Someone committed perjury. They weren't the same. In my opinion, from the data that I saw, and I'm not defending T&M, I'm doing what I think is right. I saw a document from them that they sent to Donna that she clearly received, listing their bills of $58,000 and listing what those bills were going to be for. She saw it. She got that. She didn't respond back by any means that we can check, maybe by text, but certainly not by email. But I saw that document. So she did get it. So that has me worried. I would love to save the township money, but I don't like screwing anyone who does work. So I believe T&M did the work. I believe they were instructed, and I believe they were instructed both by Donna and the mayor. That's my opinion. And I'm really at a loss here which way to go. I mean, if T&M wants to eat it, I have no objection to it, but I would not force them to do that. I have a letter here that was given to me by someone that I'd like to read into the record. And I think it was a quid pro quo. I was approached by someone who I'm not going to name that I should interview another person for township administrator that didn't put their name in, but was recommended by people from T&M. Then I got this document at the same meeting, so to me, it seems like I vote for them and they'll pay the money back. I find that distasteful, but I still am a man of my words. They did the work. Here's the document. Township statement regarding withdrawal of T&M invoices. I didn't make this up. As previously discussed, we have conducted a thorough review of the circumstances regarding the proposed athletic fields at the swim club. Although it seems pretty clear there are misconceptions regarding this matter via the township's administrator's office, we find that T&M Associates did nothing improper, received the direction to proceed with their work, and we believe they're working in the best interests of the township. We have served the township well for many years, T&M, and we feel that the invoices do so currently. We appreciate TM's willingness to withdraw the attached invoices of $31,000 to lessen the financial impact to the township would suffer from the project's cancellation. Now look, guys, I stated, and I'm in a dilemma here, so I think T&M did the work, I think T&M was ordered, but I don't like any quid pro quos that I have to interview someone to get $31,000 back. That upsets me. But back to the point, I think they did the work, I think they deserve to be paid. That's my opinion. Whether we pay them, Eric pays them, Donna pays them, someone told them to do the work, and I believe they followed the procedure and they should be paid.
Who
That's
sent
right.
the letter?
I have no idea where this came from. It was handed to me. Please don't talk from the audience.
So we have three different opinions. Do you want to table this for the next executive session? I mean, I think we should.
I think we should.
Table this till
Yeah,
everybody's
let's
here.
table to the executive
Table
session.
it.
Fine.
Put that in the next.
Any other?
The table.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to
Executive
table it in
agenda.
executive session.
Second.
Wendy?
Mr. Montempo?
Yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Dr. Pascucci?
Yes.
Mr. Nicholas?
Yes.
Okay, it's tabled.
Okay. What else? Oh, so mine. You're covered? The only thing I'll say is that our first aid squad celebrated their 50th year in service. We had a great turnout from residents and members, and it was a fun evening. And I'm proud to be a part of the first aid squad for so many years, and I'm also proud that we've continued the tradition of volunteering for EMS and fire in this town. It's a dying breed in the state, but our first aid squad has 64 members. We answer over 1,600 calls a year, and we don't get the members don't get paid a dime for it. And it was nice to see even residents from the town that came and showed their appreciation. So on that, I will open it to the public for public comment. Mr. Wall, come on up.
Good evening, how are you today? Terrence Wall, 170 Looking Court. I have a question for Dr. Pascucci. If the premise upon which you designed your censure and your concerns and thought process was fundamentally flawed, would you rescind your censure and make a motion for that? If your premise was flawed?
What's your question?
Okay, my question is, you put forth that 2+ million was included in the bills list over 3,500, correct?
It was.
Okay, so you stand by that?
I stand by it.
Okay, you know you're wrong.
No, I'm not.
Okay, do you want me to explain to you how the agenda works?
No, I don't. You get 3 minutes and that's it, Mr.
Okay, well,
Wall.
I'll explain to you our misogynist Dr. Pascucci using women's rude words for women.
I don't push people like you do, Terrence.
No, excuse me.
I don't push
excuse me.
people. This
No,
is
hold
not
on,
this
hold on,
place
hold on, hold on.
All right.
forum for this.
So here's the agenda. Here's the agenda. You have a consent agenda. You have a bills list over 3,500. Okay? That's under your consent agenda. Are you with me so far?
No, I'm
No,
not.
I'm going through the agenda, and I can explain, because I think...
Please make your public comment.
Yeah, but just make your comment and then
Okay.
we'll respond.
All right, I'll direct this then to the
the
clerk's
committee.
office. There's a consent agenda. Or the attorney, there's a bills list over 3,500. Within that bills list, that is a specific bills list, there's, I think, one bill in it. And below that, separate and apart from the bills list that's over 3,500, within the body of the consent agenda are additional consent agenda items within the agenda. It's a public document. Several agenda items below the 3,500 bills list, which you have held so fast to, and frankly had the Star Ledger reporting on incorrectly. Below that, there is, I believe it's an educational consortium, which is the turf vendor, and I believe below that there's another separate item within the consent agenda. Your whole premise upon which you've thrust this process onto this mayor is flawed. From this meeting, I urge the committee and the attorney to give them some advice on what they're stating in public. Look at the agenda. I'll say it one more time quick. You have a consent agenda. You have a bill list over 3,500. That is its own resolution, which had one bill in it. It's around 5,400. Within the body of the rest of the consent agenda, you have separate items that have nothing to do with the bills list that you've been talking about for months. Within that consent agenda, towards the bottom, I didn't bring, because the meeting was going along great until you guys started talking. You'll see that there are separate resolution items having nothing to do with the bills list over 3,500. That's my point. That's the agenda. That's a public document. The premise upon which you have censured this individual was fraudulent. I'm talking as a lifelong resident, of this town, as a 3-term member of that township committee, somebody who's involved in many different things over the years in public service. You have hijacked this man falsely, and the record will prove it out. And I certainly hope that there is an appropriate apology for you jacking up a man and his family and this municipality with your false allegations. It was wrong what you did. The proof will show when anybody looks at this agenda. You should be incredibly embarrassed and ashamed of yourself. You'll have an election, and whoever wants to vote, will vote with conscience. They'll vote for the independent candidates. They'll vote for whoever they wish to. But I have been watching this fraud, and it's wrong. Go look at the agenda. Come back at this next meeting and either state that it's true or not true. The reason I mentioned your comments about women, I thought they were wrong. You're going to a fundraiser for the lead investigator in the charade, and you're being investigated with the library at the State Attorney General's office. And this is the crew who is censuring a man who simply likes providing for children's sports. As a lifelong resident of this town, you're embarrassing. And you should all resign, quite frankly.
What you said is
it's
false.
wrong what you have done.
You're done.
No,
Yeah.
may I respond to
You
Mr.
can.
Campaign? You are completely wrong. The agenda that I received had 2 agenda items for lights and for the field, totaling 2.1, on the bills payable over 3,500. That's the truth, and I have a copy which I didn't bring today. That's the one that I have. It was nowhere else on the agenda, Terrence. You are wrong. Then these committeemen called the lawyer, and he can testify, and we said, this is BS. You can't have these 2.1 million on bills payable. The project was done. It was ready to go. It was only on that one place. There was nowhere else on the agenda, no other resolution till we called, and we said this is unacceptable. That's the problem. I have that agenda, and I can have the clerk produce it to anyone and put it online. The agenda that we received, that's the only place. So you're incorrect,
The public agenda.
I will clarify, and this is at the invitation of Committeeman Pascucci and not the public comment. There are draft iterations of agendas that the committee may be speaking to. So, Mr. Wall, when you reference the agenda and you reference my legal advice regarding agendas, you have a public agenda. You have access to public documents, whether they were posted on the website or whether they were opened. The committee has access to draft documents that you may not have access to, and those are the documents that Committeeman Pascucci may in fact be referencing.
And we instituted the change, not the mayor. We did. This would have went through at that meeting if we didn't notice the irregularities. That's the truth, Terrence. So I'm not apologizing. And whatever misogynistic, I don't know why I'm misogynistic.
When you reference the administrator should have strong enough gonads to attend a meeting or not attend a meeting. Yes.
Gonads, that was a compliment. because I'm not sexual. Whether it's testicles or ovaries, it's gonads.
I have no other questions. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Terrence, and hopefully you can push
Thank you very much.
me like you pushed Gary Almeyer.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Prakash, go ahead.
Put it online.
Prakash Santana, 18 Barbera Drive. Dr. Pascucci, I applaud you for the courage to censure a fellow committeeman because it takes a lot of courage. But I want to tell you, regardless of what anyone else says, having followed this very closely, you did the right thing. No one's above the law. Let's make it very clear. And I've said this many times, I'm sure you agree with this, the truest test of character is what one does when no one's watching. And you did the right thing by passing this resolution. Thank you.
Ralph Blumenthal, 41 Stony Brook Road. I'd like to welcome Mr. Antrick to Homedale. I look forward to working with you. I look forward to the opportunity to meet with you at whatever brunch or whatever you folks set up. Just one question, when do you start?
November 12th.
November 12th.
In a month. Armistice. Thank you. Thank you, and I look forward to meeting you and talking.
Ralph, just talk to us, Ralph.
Okay. Just one quick question for Rocco to clarification with regard to the EMS and the firehouse. Yeah, I guess the emergency management people are there, and that has to be taken into account.
Mike.
Okay.
Just
That's your phone.
Ada.
I wasn't quite clear in what you said. That is there agreement about the EMS building and creating a new not for the management people, but for first aid people? Is there agreement on the first aid building on the going into the parking lot?
You mean an agreement that the first aid people want it?
And where it will be?
The first aid people would like a new building, of course. They still haven't given their okay to the plans we initially have out there. So they, of course, would like it.
Okay, so you're still talking about two buildings.
We're talking about either a new first aid building with reconditioning the current fire and first aid building, or a completely new firehouse somewhere on F&F in that vicinity. That's my opinion where we are today, and the whole township committee will discuss it next time when they get copies of the drawings and the costs.
Regardless, we're talking two buildings. Or no, is the one option?
We're going to get either a new first aid building, just reconditioning the fire first aid building.
Right.
Making one of the bays bigger, giving them sleeping
Right.
rooms, a big kitchen.
Or a totally
New
building
firehouse,
over-
first aid doesn't
Leaving
get it.
the existing building
They
alone.
might get some tune-ups in the building, but they stay where they are.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Confusing for me too, Ralph.
Mr. Sokol.
By the way, the Astros are winning 2-1. I usually try not to delve into things I don't know a whole lot about, but I'm going to give it a shot right now.
Sorry, Mike.
Just say your name and
Mike
address.
Sokol, 6 Wild Hedge Lane. Rocco, question for you about locations. Obviously, for someone who lives in the southern portion of the town, this is very sensitive about where the fire station would be. And one of the beauties of the old fire station was it was essentially in Precinct 5, which is not only the largest precinct in town, but larger by 50%. It's really a major center of the population of Homedale. So what I was curious about is, obviously we're hamstruck, as to locations based on where we can do it, but how much work have we done towards looking along the 520 corridor, the Newman Springs Road corridor, for the possibility of a fire station or something, like Homedale Road off that area?
Nothing right now, Mike, because our goal was because of cost. It's going to cost about $5 million, whichever way we're going.
Right.
Is that we can't have two firehouses right now. We want a centrally located firehouse. We have dedicated volunteers. But if that ever falls through, we would have to have at least a partially paid system where they can sleep. So our goal, which we all agreed to up here and made everyone agree, is a centrally located firehouse that could reach the south, which is pretty big coverage. Most of the people, I believe, live in the north. But we figure F&F or Crawford's Corner Road can reach both of them. And that's why we're doing a centrally located I would love to have two, Mike. I just can't see us affording it.
So I thought at one point we were talking about kind of a centralized, like you're saying, but we were talking about a satellite station where equipment would exist closer to the southern part of town, and the staffing would come to. So that concept is no longer.
Never fully explored that, though. One thing that we've been going with for a while from the fire study is centrally located firehouse. One firehouse that could serve the north and the south. And we would hopefully have enough volunteers to staff it. If not, we would have to look elsewhere. But we feel we need a centrally located one. I would love to have that one back, but we don't have it.
Yeah, so I mean, the only thing that I would kind of recommend to the body is this is an issue that I truly believe is one of those issues you could really go to the voters and kind of explain if we needed to raise additional money through a bond, or we needed another way of a revenue source to create two firehouses. We have an 18 square mile area. It's one of the reasons why we have a fairly large police department for a town this size. So it's just a geographical problem. And I think if we took, it's one of those examples, I hate using the term political courage because that's ridiculous, but the point is, I would encourage the members of this body to really, let's go out to the community, let's talk about it, let's see if we can get some public support for two fire stations, because the reality is, it's probably the best solution for a town of this size.
Thank you, Mike.
You bet.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, Donna.
Hi, Donna Carinante, 13 Hayward Hills Drive. For clarification, when I come up here and I address everyone, I come up and address you as a town resident who has raised my two young sons, who are adults now, through the Homedale school system. I've been a resident for 22 years. I've also worked within the Republican Party for the last 15 years, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And just to address Mr. Yanello's comment that he made back in July, when I come up here, I'm speaking on behalf of my family. Yes, I am Tom Fratelli's sister. But
Thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah, no, anytime. I
Yeah.
appreciate
You didn't acknowledge it all those other times.
I honestly didn't think it was necessary. I honestly didn't think it was necessary.
Okay.
Because when I come up here, I address my concerns. And I would just like to reiterate something Terrence Wall said just a few moments ago. This is a political witch hunt. And I would just like to remind everyone of a conversation I brought to everybody's attention, a conversation that I had with Mr. Nicholas in a public venue, where you said right after, actually it was before the election, if you lost the primary, you would do everything in your power to jeopardize anything Mayor Hines put in front. And ever since that day, that's all I've witnessed from the three of you. And while I understand you have this holier than thou complex on some of these issues, what I've seen happening is beyond insulting to the people in this town. What I'm seeing you do to Mayor Hines is insulting for a man that's worked tirelessly. Now, you all supported a turf field. Mr. Nicholas, you supported a turf field. Dr. Pascucci, you spoke on behalf of the American Board of Pediatrics, saying that there were no health concerns and you supported a turf field. You had wanted it maybe looked at more so at Cross Farms. So while there may be disagreements, and I understand consent agenda and things along those terms, at the end of the day, when are we going to put the children of Homedale first, make these recommendations and these recreational improvements that are so desperately needed? My two sons, my 24-year-old son is still nursing an injury that he suffered on one of the fields. We need additional fields for the girls and the boys, whether it's lacrosse, whether it's field hockey, whether it's football, whether it's soccer. We need you guys to come together and make decisions instead of battling each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jay Yanello, 18 Landwood Drive. Mr. Fratelli, I hate to disagree with you, and you're my sister, but this is not a political witch hunt. Mr. Nicholas and I, as I said before, have had some significant disagreements over the past few years. In fact, we didn't speak for 9 months. I was so mad at him, and we've barely spoken since. What this is are citizens, most of which don't really care much about politics, and for a large part, don't really care if we have a turf field or not. They just want the process done right. And time again, when our mayor has wanted to locate a turf field, the process was not done right. It's not a witch hunt. You see it with the hundreds of signs for the independent candidates on people's lawns. You saw it at their fundraiser at Fox Hollow, the passion, and the significant sum of money that they raised. The idea that this is a political witch hunt is a sham. Anyone with an objective mind that looks at what happened knows exactly what happened. Mr. Pascucci, that draft agenda, you listening?
Yeah.
That draft agenda, can you please put that on the website so those still in denial at what happened, and there's obviously a lot in the room tonight, can see that. And apparently there's an email or some discussion about Mr. Hines wanting the girls softball to pay for, the HYA or something to pay for their improvements at Cross Farm Park. Can we put that online while he's trying to raise millions for the soccer fields that benefit the HYSA, which had revenues of over $800,000 last year? And while I'm on that topic, it was brought up that I didn't really believe what I was saying about the private soccer club. Let me tell you something. I have many better things to do than to come up here and mention one syllable about what I don't believe. I see their financial statements. Cash on hand, 400,000+. Revenues every year, 800,000. If someone from the finance committee would like to walk me through their quarterly numbers and show why that cash doesn't mean anything and it truly isn't there, I'd love to. But there's a lot of money rolling around this private club. There's a lot of inconsistencies with people saying it's for the children when it doesn't seem to always be for the children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lawyer, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Since it was a draft agenda, can it be made public?
It's up to, if the committee wants to waive privilege on that and to provide that document, absolutely.
So well, how would we do that?
I mean, you could give me a direction here tonight that that would be the case. And I can't say I could speak to past Oprahs on that specific document, but I believe, based upon the discussion and the colloquy earlier, that you're referencing a draft iteration of the agenda.
The one before April 9th that we received a couple days before the meeting.
Correct.
I have a copy, and I would recommend that we do make it public if the majority of the township agrees.
I have no objection. Can I make a motion?
I make a motion that we release it.
Okay.
We have to take roll call.
Mr. Bontempo?
Yes.
Mr. Critelli?
I'm going to abstain. I don't know what the purpose is.
Dr. Pascucci?
Yes, I'm being said I'm a liar.
Mr. Nicholas?
Yes. All right, who's next? Yes.
Ron Emma, 32 Ladwood Drive. I'd like to applaud you, Dr. Pascucci, for your diligence with the firehouse and all your efforts to try to secure that, but I'm a little confused. We were waiting for the plans to be made public for the Crawford's Corner building, and now all of a sudden, we're back to F&F, which I happen to believe is the right place to put it. But where did this come? I thought it was Crawford's Corner and EMS across the street. Now we're all back to square one. This is what happens. We're losing traction again. So I'd like you to respond. I have one other point. We're past the deadline for the new fire truck. 2 meetings ago, there was a deadline that a fire truck was going to be ordered. I'd like to know what the status of that procurement process is.
Let me do my part, and then I'll ask the administrator and the
Hold on, did you have anything else, Ron?
Yes.
No.
One other thing. I don't think anyone in town would be against the concept of transparency. So I applaud you, Dr. Pascucci, for having the bravery to put forth that censure. Everyone, this whole process of the consent agenda and the 2.1 million and the swing club debacle, no one is complaining, or to the best of my knowledge, no one is against the concept of turf fields. What people are against is the backhandedness, the secrecy, and this whole slipping under the radar, 2.1 million for a swim club. That's a fact. Put it out there, say you want a turf field, you want to put it here, you want to put it there, let the people know. But to think this is a political witch hunt when really all we're asking for is transparency. I don't think anyone in this town would disagree that transparency is a bad thing.
And I'll answer my part the best I can. This meeting, we were supposed to discuss amongst us the renovation of the fire and first aid building and the building of the new first aid building at the Crawford's Corner campus. It was not supposed to be leaked to anyone. Someone leaked it to the fire department. And they got very upset and sent a letter to me personally saying they're not going to do it. It wasn't signed, it was stamped. They wanted to put it, and I'm not throwing Mr. Pesh under the bus, because I do like his property maybe for the firehouse, but it's off the table. They wanted to put it there.
Where is the Pesh property?
It's across from Crawford's Corner Road, the side of the high school by Falcon Ridge Development. There used to be a Korean church there. Not a bad piece of property. However, we would have to buy it or rent it, which would be another expense. So this was supposed to be secret. I don't know who did it. Someone leaked it to them. So now they got up in arms. I would like to make this as smooth as possible. I'm not a big bully like everyone thinks I am. I would like to get everyone to agree on this. So then all of a sudden that happens, so we had to look further. Pesh pulled his property off. He doesn't want to sell it or buy it, is the last that I understand. So we're back to F&F. So we're going to have to decide, are we going to renovate the building, tell the fire department this is what you get? There are some problems with it, and we'll go over them in detail when we all discuss it. I personally think F&F is the best site.
It's a blank canvas, it's perfect.
And if we can get the corner, which would be a little bit better, and we're working on that, that might make things a little easier. So I'm upset as everyone, but we will discuss it. If we can get it on the agenda, and I'm sure the mayor will, we'll discuss it and hopefully make a decision by the next meeting. We have the drawing, we just need the numbers.
Thank you for your diligence.
You're welcome.
Where are we with has someone called the fire truck dealer and said, I want to order a fire truck? The money's there. We're past that.
Well, I could inform you procedurally that the bond amendment that's required.
That was 2 meetings ago, the bond.
Correct. And bond excuse me, if you want to ask a question, please give me the opportunity to answer. The bond council reviewed it. The public hearing was scheduled for the meeting 2 Tuesdays ago. That was canceled. On the advice of bond council, we had to reintroduce the ordinance. So it was reintroduced tonight. Public hearing scheduled for the next meeting in November. After that's finally adopted, the committee can then move ahead with any procurements under that resolution.
So there's been no action whatsoever as far as specking out a truck?
Well,
what kind of truck?
To be honest, the fire department, their committee, had a conference call with Pierce today.
Great.
Earlier today to
Pass
start
the deadline,
spending
great.
it. Yeah.
So they have a spec and they have a truck they want, and this is the one that.
Yes. They're all custom made. They're speccing it out, custom for home dell.
What's the timeline on that?
Don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. There's no right answer to give. We couldn't even begin to guess on the exact date there'll be a delivery, but you'll know.
I would hope that we could nail that down.
It's not a used truck.
It's a new truck.
It's a new truck.
This is a new vehicle, $800,000 from that $5 million bond we took out, and they can't order obviously until the bond's passed, but they are. I did push them to move ahead and get.
This is the Pierce, right?
Yes,
Pierce is a.
That is what
we have.
Rolls Royce. Very good.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you very much.
Okay, who's next? Let's go, Mr. Wood.
Hi, Tom Wood, 20 Heatherfield Way, Homedale. So I have a question. Earlier today, you approved the appointment of a new deputy municipal clerk.
Yes.
Her name is Carrie Ann Callery. And our HR director is Denise Callery. Do we know if these two people are related?
It is her stepdaughter.
Okay. And Denise Callery is the woman who we suspended because of allegations regarding nepotism in hiring in the township. Is that correct? Say yes, it's a public fact.
This isn't a deposition.
Okay,
You're making a public comment.
Okay, fine. I'm making a public comment. So, I would question whether there were any potential conflicts of interest with respect to the HR director of the township hiring her stepdaughter.
Well, the HR director doesn't hire anybody.
All right.
But it was vetted through our labor attorney. The subject you're talking about has been an employee of the town for several years, and she works in the clerk's office already, and she was moved to deputy under Wendy.
do we have any reason to believe that the HR director will be insulated from any personnel decisions with respect to her stepdaughter?
Well, I don't know what you're asking. What are you asking?
So, as the HR director, you would normally have purview to understand, to see a lot of information about all employees. Does that apply in this case?
Seeing the information about the employee, that's not an issue. That's what you're asking?
Having input in decisions about...
HR does not have input in any decisions when it comes to promoting raises. They're just, that's not their job. She would answer to Wendy, the clerk.
Okay, I would say that given the fact that this was such a sore subject earlier in the year, and that it was chosen to make this appointment via the consent agenda, which is obviously a sore subject, perhaps it could have been handled a little bit better and in a more transparent way. I think there are people who are going to be concerned that something is being...
Yeah, I'll disagree with you on that. This is a personnel matter. If there's any review by Labor Council, like the chief referenced, that's not for public consumption. So I think you're asking for information that would never be made publicly available. And the public action tonight is the appointment of the individual, which was on the agenda, and that's the proper form. And any appointment of that nature is always been on the consent agenda. That's never not been the case.
Thank you.
Yes, Mary back.
Hello, Mary Vasilakis. I'm at 33 Glen Way. I have so many thoughts in my head right now. I'll try to keep it as concise as I possibly can. I've been here many meetings talking about the turf field, the request for the turf field for the school, as well as for the children that play soccer, lacrosse, everything. We had 4 varsity teams practicing on one field, having to rotate and break it up into different parts. I stood here and spoke and was told, no worries, it's in the 2020 proposal with the Board of Ed because we couldn't do the cross farms thing. It never happened. We've asked time and time again. I'm a little confused though, Dr. Pascucci, because you mentioned that you were holding a receipt or an invoice in your hands for a certain amount of money, and then you had Donna saying that the work wasn't done or the work was done. If you don't even know if the work was done or if it wasn't done, why are you putting forth the censor?
We know the work was done. Everything was ready to go at that meeting in August. The work from T&M, April, the work from T&M, the work from our township people was all done. It was ready to go as soon as we approved that bill. It was ready.
Right, and the bill was supposed to be done in that meeting that was canceled, correct?
Right, it was
For
a bill
discussion.
to be paid. That was the only place. It wasn't a resolution to do this. It was a resolution to pay bills. Again, you should talk, but it was a project that was ready to move forward the next day.
Go ahead, Mary.
So I guess my question is, do you really think that somebody was trying to put a 2.1 million under the carpet and to slide it
Yes.
through?
Yes.
How
Yes.
realistic are you that that would actually happen?
What's on the thing?
No, you get to talk.
No, hold on. Let Mary finish. Let Mary
Okay,
finish.
so I think the point here is that you're not sure, it was the April meeting